How's this place, huh? Right up on stage, I want to introduce the chairwoman of the Maryland Republican Party. The reason I wanted to bring her up is because she is partly responsible for the fact that they have a Republican governor and we don't. Just until next year. And their early voting is up, what, 40% or something?
We had a 22% of all of our voters voted. It's shattered records across the state. And in many areas, our Republicans outperformed what we've done in the past.
I guess who's running Maryland as well as Northern Virginia? John Jaggers. He's a shy one. While he's making his way up, so think about this. In 24 hours, we have had Donald J. Trump in Loudoun County last night. How many of you were there? How many of you stayed till 2:30 in the morning? And today, in about 1 minute, we're about to have Ivanka Trump and Tiffany Trump come out and speak to us. And, what would you say our chances are of winning Loudoun County right now?
If you all bring your friends to vote, we're going to win Loudoun County and we're going to win Virginia. Let's get it done.
Our chances are very good in winning Maryland. There is great energy. We haven't seen it like this before in Maryland. We'll take Maryland too. We'll take it.
What would you all say are our chances of winning Virginia right about now? All right, are we ready to go? Are we ready to get the book done?
I'm not charged, that's right.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting,
We're both married. You understand? We're in charge of nothing.
that's right. Okay, looks like another minute. Someone's here that I think would be a good person to talk. I see her out in the audience. Kathy Gillespie, do you have a minute? You come up and just talk to us? Yeah. Do you mind? Come on up. Kathy Gillespie, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, thank you. It's just an honor to be here today, and Ed was so glad to be with Governor Pence a couple of nights ago at George Mason, where there were so many people that there was an overflow crowd outside, and he went out and spoke with Karen Pence in the crowd. And I know there's so many people in the audience here today that are working so hard and are knocking so many doors and making so many phone calls, and we just want to say thank you, because the future of our country is at stake. And if we don't win this election tomorrow, I would just hate to see what the Clintons are going to try to do to our country and to the United States Constitution. The Constitution is a real passion of mine. I've spent the past 6 years working very hard with an organization called Constituting America that promotes the Constitution to both kids and adults. And, you know, I feel like that they're just not teaching the Constitution like they did in school when we were in school. And it's so important as parents that we teach our kids about the United States Constitution, and that we have elected officials at all levels of government who respect the Constitution. I see a young lady over here nodding her head. That's great to see. And who, once elected, actually mean it when they take the oath to say that they will support and defend the United States Constitution. And I know that Donald Trump will do that. I know that Mike Pence will do that. And again, just want to thank you all for being here today, and John for giving me the opportunity to say a couple of words. Thank you.
got maybe time for one more, but I want to introduce you to somebody who's going to shock the world in 24 hours. This is Charlie Vernick. He is running for Congress in the 8th District against Don Byer. And he just say a few words to you all right now.
Thank you, John. Thanks, everyone here. Who's ready to shake things up in Washington? I live here in Northern Virginia. I'm in Kathy Gillespie's district. I've asked for a lot of votes. And I was shaking hands on Saturday and getting giant hugs from Trump supporters in Arlington, Virginia. Who expected that? Folks, there's a lot of excitement going into this race. And I got into it because I want to shake up the status quo in Washington and do better, get results for average Americans, our neighbors. I've had a tremendous amount of success focusing on the issues, economic growth, national security, government efficiency, and I'm looking forward to having Donald Trump as a partner in that so we can get things done here in Northern Virginia. Who's excited about that? People have traveled from all over the place. What I love about this crowd here is we've got people from every ethnic background, first-generation immigrants, second-generation immigrants, people who've been living in Virginia, and families have been here in Virginia for 100 years. This is what America looks like in this room. That's what I'm excited about in this election, to have someone lead this country that represents this country. I couldn't be more excited. Thank you, John, for a few minutes here. I'm Charles Vernick, and I'm running in the 8th.
We really appreciate you coming out on this very important day following, of course, before the wonderful victory tomorrow that we're looking forward to. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Michael McDonald, the General Manager here. I'm honored to be the General Manager of this wonderful club. I'm even more honored to work for Donald Trump and the Trump family. I will tell you a few words about Mr. Trump. Firsthand, I work under the man. He is incredible. It's incredible to work for. He's very kind to all of us, all the employees that work under him. This is a man, his entire family prescribes and subscribes to this. Excellence. If you look around, what do you see? Excellence. Everything on time, on budget, done right the first time. This is what we need in the White House, and we haven't had in a long time, ladies and gentlemen. One last little tidbit, ladies and gentlemen. When you hear that the Trump Organization employs a little more than 10,000 people, think about this. It's much more than 10,000 people that they employ. You think about all the wonderful properties they have, all the vendors, the meat vendors, the carpet layers, the carpenters, everybody that reaches out. 100,000 people or more. And it's all done properly. It's all done right. This is exactly what we need in the White House, ladies and gentlemen. And we appreciate you going out, what you've done to bring the vote to Mr. Trump. I have the privilege and honor to introduce some wonderful ladies this evening. First and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, part of our little panel here tonight, Kay Coles James. Kay, come on out. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Tiffany Trump. Tiffany. And last but not least, Ivanka Trump, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. We're working. We've got waters, we've got chairs, we've got the spirit. We're on our way to victory. Are you ready to win? I am so excited about being here today. And we have limited time, so I'm going to keep my comments very brief and get right to the questions, because they know me here as their former Secretary of Health for the Commonwealth of Virginia. The reason I mention that is because it's a segue into my first question. Because I know, Ivanka, that there are some issues that are very near and dear to your heart. And your father has made it known that you talked to him and guided him and shaped his thinking on issues of child care and elder care. I wonder if you'd like to talk about that for a few minutes.
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. First of all, thank you all for coming today. Something amazing, and I can't even believe it. Tomorrow, after all these months, years, to be able to say tomorrow is election day is very special. So thank you to all of the volunteers, especially who have been out there. My father always says that he's the messenger, but it's your movement. And thank you so much for the great work that you're doing. We're deeply, deeply appreciative. Going back to the question, it's interesting, throughout this process, I always joke, my father is a very candid person. So I don't need to translate what his viewpoint is on policy. He tells the American people directly. So he's not shy, and he's very forthright, and we love that about him. But one area, so generally speaking, I've said, I allow him to speak about the policy because he's the candidate, I'm not. With one exception, I'm deeply passionate on a personal level about issues relating to women and to families. Child care is something that is a family issue, not a women's issue, but it does disproportionately affect women because the cost of child care has gone through the roof at the same time that wages have stagnated, and it's just not sustainable. It's a huge problem. A lot of people don't realize that now child care is the single largest family expense in over half of the homes in this country, even exceeding the cost of housing. So it's out of control and it's unsustainable. And my father, as an employer of tens of thousands of people, over 50% of which at the Trump Organization are women, he understands the modern workforce and the needs of that workforce, and he recognizes the fact that child care is a cost of doing business and should be treated accordingly. Therefore, he's put forth a plan, which I think is an exceptional one, that will allow people to deduct the average cost of child care in their state from their income taxes, which is great. And for American people, there will be an expansion of the existing earned income tax credit to benefit them. So I think it's very important. And also, I will say that the tax code needs to be neutral on families' choices to work inside or outside of the home. And it's high time that we recognize the incredible work being done by stay-at-home parents. And they get that same benefit applied to their household taxes if they're the ones providing the care. So it's very important. The government can decide the value the families getting, and if they're choosing to work inside or outside the home. I always joke that I know on a personal level, I'm much more tired on a Monday morning than I am on a Friday afternoon. So regardless, we're all working very, very hard. Secondly, and this is something that I think is very innovative and very important, he's proposed the creation of dependent care savings accounts. And these are accounts that you could create, anyone in America could create them, so they're not employer dependent. Any family can create them. And you can contribute pre-tax dollars that roll over from year to year and can be used for after-school enrichment activities, traditional daycare services, an extension of school choice should you want to send your child to private school, but also, and you had mentioned policies dealing with older people within our communities. Dependent care also applies to elderly dependents, and disproportionately women are the ones providing unpaid care for elderly dependents as our parents and our grandparents age. So it's incredibly important, and especially important when you think about the very sobering statistic that 47% of American households, and 47% of American households, a family can't come up with $400 in the event of an emergency without borrowing or selling something. So we need to facilitate savings, we need to encourage it, and for the people making the least who need it the most, my father's plan also proposes to match the first 50% of the first $1,000 contributed annually to encourage and incentivize savings that we so desperately need. So those are just a few elements. I welcome you guys to go to the website and read about the full plan, but I'm proud to champion it, and it's so important for families across this country.
Wow, I may come back to that in a minute, but I wanted to get Tiffany in here. Looking around the audience, there aren't a whole lot of millennials here, but we know how important it is to get them to the polls tomorrow and to get them engaged politically. And I wondered if you would just talk to them for a minute so they can go home and tell their kids and grandkids, why should they vote for your dad?
Well, you know, I graduated from UPenn in May, so.
You're here.
Who told me and my friends, you know, student debt is a horrible, very serious problem. And when you graduate, you want to be able to go out there and start, pursuing your dreams and not having so many things holding you back. And I know my father to be the man to be able to create jobs with great wages, with equal pay for women. And with that, I know he will be the champion for people my age and the millennials, and really help us pursue our dreams.
Thank you.
I'm on the older end of the millennial spectrum, but I know for us millennials who are also starting families, obviously, education in general, it's so important. It is something, it's the foundation, the future of this country, and we're doing so many students around this country a tremendous disservice. So my father feels very vehemently about repealing Common Core and bringing education back to the kids. So teachers and parents and communities can decide what's right for their students. And one of the great privileges I've had through the past several months is traveling around the country, and proactively I've really wanted to visit grade schools, whether they be public schools or private schools or charter schools, and hear directly from the parents, the students, the teachers, what's working. And there are incredible examples of education at the highest level happening all across this country. Unfortunately, not enough students are benefiting from it. So it's so important to bring education back to the local level, and my father's proposed $20 billion in block grants that would be sent directly to the states.
As a former member of the Fairfax County School Board, it's music to my ears. Thank you. Thank you. America has suffered under what we have come to know as the failure factories. We're just pumping out students who can't even read their diplomas. And so it is so exciting to hear that these are issues that are important to you. In a very few days, you're going to be the first daughters. All of you, both of you have had to balance what, being in the spotlight, trying to run a business, raise a family, live a life, go to school. How do you work all of that out? How do you balance all of that out? Because some of us are trying so hard and we want your best tips.
Well, these days it feels like I'm drinking water from a fire hose. So, but I think every single person in this room can relate to that. So, look, I think we're all doing the best we can, and we take it day by day. But I always tell people, don't strive for perfect balance because it's very self-defeating. Really think about your life from the perspective of your priorities. and check in with yourself regularly and make sure that you're creating a life that honors those priorities and building a life that's consistent with them. So I think I think 5 years ago, even with the birth of my daughter, I was frantic about doing everything perfectly and achieving this elusive balance. And by the time my third was born, I just let it go. I do the best I can every day, every week, but life is a marathon, not a sprint. And just generally, I think thinking bigger picture about making sure we try to be where we're most needed, at the right place at the right time. Obviously, letting our kids know that we're there for them when they need us, but that doesn't mean we're there always, and we can't be. And just creating a work-life fit that works best for us.
Well, from the outside looking in, you have managed it beautifully, and what an inspiration. I have a daughter who has 3 kids, and what a role model you are for her and so many others around the country. Tiffany, we don't have the privilege of having Donald Trump as a dad. So, could you help us out a little bit and just pretend for a minute? Hear his voice. What is some of the best advice he ever gave you that you could share with us?
Okay, well, study hard. You know, he places a very, very high emphasis on education. He's always wanted me to just pursue my passions and really study for that next exam, propel myself forward. And I think with that, a lot of times people will just, have open-ended promises, and it sounds beautiful, and but unfortunately that doesn't actually come into being. So with my dad, he wanted all of us to have a goal, but actually achieve it. And don't just talk about, some open-ended, beautiful thing you're going to do unless you actually can start making it happen. Mm-hmm. And with that, I think he's been so.
We haven't been privileged to have him as dad, but in a few hours we will be privileged to call him Mr. President. So, Ivanka, I heard you speak to this a little earlier today, and I thought it is well worth repeating and sharing with this particular audience. Mostly because I agree with you 100% on this one. So would you describe women's issues for us, please?
Oh, I just like that expression. So clearly there are certain issues that disproportionately affect women. We were talking about responsibilities for care of dependents. There still exists wage inequality, which we're moving in the right direction, but in my opinion, not quickly enough. And in a Trump presidency, I believe very strongly that we'll make great strides to finally level that playing field. But generally speaking, I dismiss the notion that 50% of the population has specific issues. We don't talk about men's issues. I don't love talking about women's issues. I like talking about jobs, which are women's issues, the economy, which are women's issues, healthcare, which are women's issues, education, security. So these are all women's issues, and I think it's more important to speak about the broader issues affecting the whole population, every single American. And I think that those issues that I mentioned and several others are on the top of all of our collective priority list regardless of gender.
Hear, hear. Keeping our country safe is a women's issue. Making sure that there are jobs to take care of our families, women's issue. I couldn't agree with you more. We could go right through the list. So I really appreciate that answer, and I think the majority of Americans agree with you on that. So we're getting down to hours, just hours before the polls open. We got to get them charged up Gotta get them ready to go out. I want you to give the closing argument. I'm going to start with you, Tiffany, and just give them the best you got, what we need to do in the next few hours.
Well, you know, I think everyone needs to just know that my father's doing this for all of you. He's really wants to be the people's president, and right now, you know, we have so many amazing supporters and volunteers, but everyone has to vote. That's where, you know, just going to the poll station, getting your friends who think, oh no, I don't need to vote, let them know that that is where they can make their voice heard and their opinion heard. And if they want to change and vote for change, then I think they need to vote for my father.
It's so true, you know, what Tiffany said about my father being the people's president. He talks about this being a movement for the people, and it really is a movement by and for the people. He is unbeholden to anyone other than you, the American people, and that is so refreshing and so unique about his candidacy. I'll tell you, you know, my father in general, and part of why I'm always inspired by his leadership, first at the Trump Organization, where I've had the privilege to work alongside of him for so many years, and more generally in his leadership now in politics. He's a big thinker. He's a bold thinker. He's unafraid of success. He swings for the fences, but he always marries that vision with execution. He gets it done. Even when there are naysayers, even when there are people who said it's not possible, he's a businessman. How could he possibly become the Republican nominee? He got it done. And he'll get this done. So thank you for your support. Thank you to our great volunteers. We are so grateful. And for anyone in this room who hasn't yet volunteered, there's staff here who can help you get engaged, get involved. It's not too late. I think we're going to take home Virginia.
We are! I'm going to grab the mic for one final closing statement. This is it. This is it. Tomorrow, we begin to change the course of America. We have been blessed with a tremendous candidate. One who has shown us the vision and the leadership, and anybody who can produce kids like this gets my vote. Let's just start there. Get a good night's sleep, start early in the morning, be at the polls when they open, volunteer, and get it done. Thank you, and thank you.
Beautiful dress, beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Pop up, wait till I get in.
What do you want us to không? Nếu được dám đi ăn tối với tôi không? Xin